Hey guys, Andy back here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you more Legions Imperialis videos. I released a video last week showing you guys how to paint up the new scenic bases that you get with all the miniatures for this new awesome version of Epic. I asked in that video if you guys would be interested in seeing more basing videos, but predominantly ones where I texture over the already kind of designed bases and give you guys more generic basing schemes. So there was a lot of responses. A lot of people seemed very, very keen on that. So obviously I did not want to disappoint you guys. So that's what I'm going to do here today. I'm going to show you tried to hold three up with my broken hand. Three more schemes for you guys. I'm going to try like a Martian scheme. I'm going to try like a standard like muck and earth scheme, and then one which is kind of like urban gray, but I'm going to put snow on it at the end, so you get kind of basically four videos if you are four bases if you want to. You can stop at the urban stage, or you can add the snow on top of that if you want for a bit of a frozen tundra look. It looks very cool. So those are the three guys that I'm going to show you how to do today, which will look great on any and all Legions Imperialis miniatures, and it basically depends on what kind of front or war zone you want to base your miniatures in. There's not that many battles that happen in pristine kind of streets in the Horse Heresy, so the standard bases that you get with it are kind of limited for what we want, but even though I think they're really nice. Before I get to that video, I just have two quick points. One, patrons, thank you so much for your continued support. It really does mean the absolute world to me. Without you guys, I would not be able to continue doing what I'm doing, so thank you so much. If you're interested in getting involved in that, links to it below in the description. You get access to a private Discord server and an extra video every single week just for you guys. So I think that's two pretty good reasons to get involved. Two, if you are interested in supporting the channel in another way, I am trying to get to 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we're actually steamrolling our way there. If we keep up this current trend, we should have absolutely no problem getting there. We might even get there before the Christmas, which would be kind of insane. If you want to help me get to that goal, please do hit that subscribe button. If you're not already subscribed, it means the world to me. Okay, without further ado, let's jump in and paint up some awesome bases. Okay guys, so like I said, I'm going to be showing you three more traditional bases for this Legions Imperialis stuff. Now, one important note is to say we don't have to try and find other bases, alternative bases. We are still going to use the bases they've given us in the box set. There's no point in wasting what they're already giving us or trying to make us go and buy MDF ones from another company or something like that. You can literally just texture over them. And that's the secret weapon that we will be using for these tutorials, is texture paste. If you use PVA glue and sand, which I know a lot of traditionalists like to use, the sand will tend to be too thick. It will just stand out horribly next to miniatures. I've actually seen it quite a lot on historical stuff. People have lines of like, you know, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 dudes in this big block. And then they have like normal granular sand, which looks pretty good for 28mm miniatures. But when it goes small, it looks like they're walking through a boulder field. It just doesn't work. The texture paste is great because you can just thin it out and smoothen it out as much as you need to get a coat on the base that isn't going to look bizarre with some miniatures standing on top of it. After I've applied texture paste, I like grabbing a Q-tip and just cleaning off the edges. Usually I would use my finger, but I can't really get my finger in around that because it's so thin and it's on the stand. So a Q-tip does a pretty good job. The orange texture paste that I use now is Firelance from AK Interactive. If you have Martian Iron Crust from Games Workshop, it does exactly the same thing. I've just found Firelance to be a lot cheaper, and you get a lot more in a bottle for each one. I use quite a lot of it, so that's the one that I have switched over to. After that, I'm just going to throw a contrast orange all over the top. If you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that this is one of my favorite basing schemes, and one I use for kind of all my Space Marines and stuff are all based on Martian scheme. I love it to bits. And obviously with the Legions Imperialis game system, they will of course be moving across to Mechanicus and Custodes at some stage. So for Mechanicus, this basing scheme is going to be awesome. Obviously Martian for Mechanicum, you get it. After that, we're going to grab some Riser Rust and dry brush that all over. Make sure the contrast is fully dry before we do this, or it'll end up a smeared mess. This just adds a little bit of life into it. And then we're going to do Screaming Skull as a very light dry brush over the top of that again. As you can see how careful and how slow I'm moving my brush, because I just wanted to catch the edges. Just add that kind of final highlight to the basing scheme. Now, if you want to, you can absolutely add things like grass tufts. But once again, the grass tufts that most companies sell are going to be kind of designed for 28mm bases or bigger. So what you're going to want to find is you want to find as thin as possible. You don't need to worry about how big they are in terms of like how much area on a base they take up. All you're looking for is the height. Make sure the height isn't too crazy, because you can always just cut them up. I've cut them up a million times before. But grass tuft is something I would stick on after I stick the miniatures on. And I know it's going to be kind of difficult to get miniatures on these bases. You will have to, of course, add a little bit of texture paste on their feet, or just paint in the orange scheme in between the little bit of base on the feet, and then press the models in with a bit of super glue. I, of course, tidied up the rims with black and then moved on to the next base. The next base is going to be, I use Dark Mud or Dark Earth from AK Interactive's diorama series. Once again, you can use Sterling Battlemire for this one if you so choose. Exactly the same reasons I use this is because it's such a gigantic pot and it saves you so much money. But obviously the texture paste is another good thing because it does cover up all that detail underneath quite nicely. And even if you see little dents or little lines underneath, it doesn't look like something natural. It just looks like, I don't know, like a field. It could be an old ditch or an old crevasse, something like that. The interesting thing about this scheme and the first scheme is after you've applied the texture paste, it's the same dry brush. So I'm actually going to dry brush the Dark Earth with Rise of Rust and then with Bone again. I've been using this particular scheme for all of my Death Corps of Krieg. I love that kind of rich, kind of oxidized earth look. Kind of oxidized is the right word. You know, like that kind of earth that's been around rust or decay. And I love that for like battlefield debris. And like I said, I added just a Rise of Rust and then a really light dry brush of a Bone over the top just to add that last highlight. Makes it all pop. And it really just works. I love it. I've used this scheme on a couple of other projects. Well, a lot of Age of Sigmar projects go on top of bases like this. And then, as per usual, we're going to tidy up the rims with a nice clean base coat of black again. Just to tidy up any of that overspill you got from the dry brushing. That's 2 basing schemes down in a number of minutes. It's such a simple and easy and effective way of going about it. Which is also quite important because obviously you're going to be doing so many of these for a Legion Imperialis army. Okay, now I have Luna Desert and Snow diorama paste. So this is going to be basically a twofer. So the Luna Desert is going to be for more of a kind of like an urban sprawl, or you can do it for like moon landing, asteroid landings, or anything like that, any kind of old wasteland style bases. But obviously think about the idea of rubbled streets. So you could use this texture paste and only cover up a portion of the base underneath. And you could have some of the actual remaining city street, and then obviously rubble has collapsed down on top of that, so you're going to cover up a portion of it, which is really cool. Or like you can do here, and you can go for full coverage. I throw an Agrax Earthshade all over the top of that, just once again to add some more depth and texture, and give me something to dry brush on top. Obviously the Luna Desert is quite a bright grey, which means that you'd have to go really, really bright in order to pull any texture out of it with a dry brush. Whereas if you knock it down with the shade, Agrax Earthshade, then you can come in really nicely with quite a dark color with the Mechanicus Standard Grey. Give that a nice light dry brush over the top of it. Add a bit of color back into it. And then after that, all we're going to do is go in with an even brighter gray again. For me, it's going to be Celestra Gray. And this is going to be a very light dry brush. Once again, like the Screaming Skull was in the last 2 basing tutorials. This once again just punches it up just a little bit. You don't have to overthink it at all. Now you could leave that here like this as a nice textured urban look. Or for me, I want to add a little bit of a snowy tundra effect. So after I have rimmed the base black, I am going to add a little bit of snow texture to these bases. Well, this base, not the other bases, which I think will work a treat. For any of those armies, like if you do Space Wolves, for instance, and you want to do a Space Wolf army for Legion Imperialis, this would be a great basing scheme for them. Really kind of put them at home where they belong, fighting through Fenris. Or the Martian scheme if they're invading the poor Thousand Suns homeworld, which I can't remember the name of now. It's going to annoy me. Someone tell me in the comments, what's the Space Wolf homeworld called? So yeah, like I said, I'm going to pick a few patches out with the snow. One of the things I find important with things like this is to make sure that some of the snow texture goes to the edge of the base entirely to give the illusion that that patch will go on further. And with that, like I said, that's going to bring an end to the first or the second batch of 3 bases. This is the ones I've done, the more natural looking bases. Like I said, I think models are going to look absolutely fantastic on these. They're still nice and interesting, but they're not too over bright and colorful that they're going to overshadow the miniatures on the bases. Things like dreadnoughts and contemptors and stuff are going to look really good. Here's a picture of them next to the other 3 I did in the first part video. So if you are curious how I did the other 3 bases in this picture, you can check that out later. Okay guys, and there we have it. 3 more bases added to my Legion playlist. Hopefully these videos have been helping you get your models on the table and get yourselves playing this awesome game very, very quickly. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a like. Make sure you ask me any questions you want in the comments below. Let me know what other videos you want to see from the Legions Imperialis range. I'm more than happy to oblige. If you want to support the channel, like I said, make sure you're subscribed. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, there is links below. And if you want to check out my affiliates, like one of my new affiliates I've just become is with Element Games. So if you're a UK watcher and you buy things, you want to get up to 15 to 25% off Games Workshop stuff and any other awesome brands that they have out there, please use the link below to go to their website. I get a little kickback and it costs you absolutely nothing else. Thank you guys so much for sticking around at the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.